Hey guys, my name is AdvHumanBeing6 and this is drawing the human figure from your mind advanced concepts. Okay, so now that we've looked at quite a bit of stuff here in understanding how to put the figure down much more rapidly, understanding a little bit about proportions. So one of the things that we're doing here, right? So the key here is in this artistic thinking process as to why are we doing these drawings so small, is because we know for a fact that the brain, we have to train the mind really to conceive the idea of the human figure as a one entity, right? So if we started doing these drawings pretty big, it would take us much more longer to train the mind to see the whole figure as a whole entity, right? Because it can't, when we look at something, like it's like this circle here that we can see everything inside it, right? And if we start going beyond it, then our eyes have to go all over the place, and it's hard for the mind to put these ideas together. So here we're just thinking theoretically, right? We're thinking that this is probably the case here, and we're trying to help the mind. We're really just giving it whatever it wants, right? So now if we put the figures down into these small thumbnails, right, we've come up with a micro system of a drawing process, a quick drawing process where we can put the figure down much more rapidly, meaning that now when you draw the figure much more bigger on paper, obviously you'll end up using the same system and you're going to be much more successful putting it down, is because the mind ends up using the same process that you went through in this micro drawings or thumbnail drawings here. This whole process, it understands how to blow it up. So here we're just thinking out loud here, right? I'll just keep that in mind. Okay, so anyways, having this knowledge now, right, and about how to put the figure down in all these different proportions, we can now look at the female figure. So here we're just going to look at the fundamentals of it, right? So we're not really going to go into detail because you really have to study the female figure, and one of the things obviously is that the female figure is really not that defined in the muscles, right? So let's just create a female figure here in a 8-head formula over here. So we're just going to use thumbnail sketches over here again. Okay, so it's going to be the same concept, right? So you get the legs over here like this, and you're going to get the belly button over here, and then you're going to get the arms over here. So remember, we're just using a very simple system here of putting the paper down. Obviously when you're drawing it, you're going to be fluid in your ideas here, right? Because we could have just drawn this like this in a different pose over here, being much more fluid in our lines over here, just like this. It's the same thing. So here I'm just explaining away stuff. Okay, so for the female figure, so we just have to be aware of these ratios here, right? So we know that really in the female figure is the pelvis, it's a little wider, right? Meaning if the pelvis is a little wider, it's going to push out the bones for the hip, meaning that if it pushes out the bones for the hip, it's going to, the ratio is going to be about over here, right? So in the other one, I'm sorry, for the male figure, we knew that it was really where the nipples were that we have to keep a lot, like where the, like if the nipples are here, we go down, we know that the love handles are going to be here, right? So for the female figure over here, the hip joint is going to be much more outward, meaning that it's going to go in over here. In this area here where the navel is, you're going to put pretty much the height of the head. You're going to fit that height of the head over here, and it doesn't have to be so accurate, right? Because you're going to be stylized anyways. So if that's the case, here we've pretty much figured out the basic concepts for the female figure, meaning it's the same thing. The knees go above, and we're not going to be so muscular here, right? We're just going to use very soft pencil lines here to put the female figure together. So we'll clean this up in a little bit. Okay, so we've already solved this problem in understanding this, right? So So the other thing is that the chest cavity is a little smaller, right? So here when you divide this in half to get the line for the nipple in the female, in the 8-head formula, right? Just know that the key figure is the 8-head formula. So for the guy, this was the line for the nipple. For the female, automatically the nipples are down because you have to compensate for the breast here, right? So it's going to pull down here a little bit, depending, really, right? Fundamentally, that's what it is, but you know, it really depends on how you do the breast here. Okay, so if that's the case, then this means that one of the things is that we went through in the structure of man is we knew that for the male that the collarbone goes up, but for the female it has to go downwards, right? So it's the up V and this is the bottom. It's a very slight angle here, but that's basically it for the female figure. And don't think about the breast here for a second, right? This is let's just put some of these ideas down first and begin to understand this, right? Because it's over here is the same thing, because you have to understand that the muscles are exactly the same over here, right? But the breast comes in the way over here. So meaning that these lines here are going to be pretty much exactly the same, and the arms for the female figure are much more skinnier, right? And over here that the trapezius is going to be not that big over here, and of course the neck is a little skinnier, and you can make it a little longer, and you get the head over here. So just clean up a little bit over here. Really, so this is like that ratio that you need to be aware of, that where this hip is, this joint is going to be just about over here, right? It's much more outwards. So here we're just looking at the basic concept here in thumbnail design over here, what we need to be aware of, right? They're not going to be that muscular, really. It's much more skinnier. Now you can put in the breasts over here, which are just going to come down kind of like this. Okay, so let's just clean this thumbnail up and see what it looks like. Okay, and here I've just cleaned up the thumbnail. So you can see the amazing difference between putting the female figure down onto paper than the male figure that we've been doing, where we know that it's automatically going to be the male, right? So here in these fundamental concepts, that where we know that, right, the pelvis is going to come out a little bit and it's going to push, well, you know, push the bone for the leg over here. So it's these ratios over here where these points are, right? They're going to be moved out, and we need to be aware of these ratios, that they go here, and this is just the height of one head. I mean, approximated, or you can be a little skinny over here. Then from here you can just go down all the way, but it can go outwards more than this, right? Well, it can, well, depending on how you're drawing the figure. But like, if you want to keep it, I guess, to some specific ratio for yourself, you can keep it on this. Just keep an eye out for this, and then when we divide this in half, right, the nipples have to come down because the breasts are going to sag down over here. So that's pretty much like the only thing you have to be aware of. And other than that, the line above here, it's the same thing for the deltoids, that you know, they're going to come and then it's going to go up here. So in this design for the female that you're seeing here, right, so here I've put the hips more bigger, but you really can't mess around with it too much, right? You can't really put too many lines here for the muscle. So this is where contour drawing and drawing from life and really getting these angles down is a crucial part in drawing nice looking female figures, right? You really just have to be very smooth with your lines here. So in this thumbnail, I think we got the point across that there's not really too much to understand about the ratios for the female figure, other than that, oh yeah, in this the clavicle goes downwards, where in the male it went upwards, right? And then the ratios are pretty much the same that you need to be aware of. So I'll see you in the next lesson. Thanks.